Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from the Canal Sidings Model Railway channel. I have now completely removed and dismantled and disposed of the three boards that are getting replaced. So I've got my workbench back. The floors are still a bit gritty. My vacuum cleaner doesn't suck that well, but I've got most of the real granite ballast that I used out of the carpet. Just a crunch every now and again now. And what you're looking at the moment is something that you've seen before, but it's the control system for my in-garage fiddle yard. As you can see, it's hanging there rather forlornly at the moment off of a bracket and a couple of pieces of steel wire. It used to be bolted up underneath the baseboard that was there, but of course that's not there, so nothing to hold it up anymore. I need to get it close to the wall, closer than it is, because there's not very much clearance behind the actual Canal Sidings layout that is going to be sat along there. That'll only be about 2 inches away from that wall. And the whole thickness of that is just over 2 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop it down a bit lower, and I'm going to drop it down to the level of what you can see in the bottom of the picture, just that little bit of blue, which is the top of a toy box, really. I use them as storage boxes, but they were sold as toy boxes very cheaply in our warehouse clearance store before it closed down. And I'm going to fit it such that the bottom of it is just above the top of that. So that is my sort of guideline of where I want it. That means I've got about 2.5 inches of clearance from the wall to the back of the trestles, which will be holding up Canal Sidings. So that should be enough. And I also want the wires, rather than going into the bottom of it as they do at the moment, I want them going into the top. Which is good because nearly all of them go into the top anyway, as you can see. And I've mentioned this before, but what that board contains is on the extreme left, where the yellow connectors and the blue blocks are on that brown coloured board. That actually provides the switching for the 6 cameras, which are in the fiddle yard. It also provides the switching for the centre section of the fiddle yard, which I'll go into a little bit later. That switches the rail polarity, and it also provides voltage for the 3 powered tension lock uncouplers that I've got in the garage. The next board actually drives that board. The next board is actually a Merg board, although it's only partially populated and then slightly modified. But it was once an AC5, I think, and it's got an AC5 IC in it. It's got the AC5 software in it. And the other 6 boards are all identical to one another, and they are Merg AC4s, each one of those capable of driving 4 solenoid point motors. And they drive all the point motors in the garage, all 20 of them, plus a few points that were on the layout, which are still connected to them. The 3 of them are still staying, so I can't take them away. I don't gain anything from that. The wires that go right down to the bottom, that disappear out of the bottom of the picture at the moment and then come back up again, they're white and black wires, are from the cameras. There's another black wire that runs along the top currently, which goes to the microphone that's in the garage, so I can actually hear trains in there as well. And all the other wires go to points and a couple of track feeds and the uncouplers. Now, what I've never done, it's occurred to me, is shown anybody what's inside my fiddle yard. I've shown you the outside of it many times when I've worked in the garage, but what's inside is a bit of a mystery. So I've dug out a photograph which was taken in 2010. Yes, that was when I built the fiddle yard. And what it actually shows is pretty much the whole track layout in the garage. The only bits it doesn't show, and it's up on the screen now, the only bits it doesn't show is where the tracks that are coming towards us as we're looking at it go to. And they're all dead ends. There are 14 of them. You can count them if you like. And in that picture you can also see all the 20 points that are in the field yard operated by this board. 20 pico points. This photograph was taken before any of the points had point motors and before any of the wiring was added to the point motors. The only bit of wiring that's there is a couple of wires that go to the centre section. There's a green one and a yellow one. You can just about see them if you look hard. In the centre of the picture, up towards the sort of just above the middle, about a third of the way down in fact. And they go to what I call the centre section of the field yard. And I've mentioned this centre section before and the fact that its polarity has to be switched. And what you can see is that on the left hand side of the field yard I have 4 tracks which disappear only to the left hand tunnel entrance exit. And on the right hand I have 5 tracks. I said 4, there are 5 tracks. On the right I also have another 5 tracks that also disappear only into their own tunnel. Yep. And they join onto the railway in opposite directions. So one joins it going north and the other joins it going south. Hence why I call the entrance on the right the south and the entrance on the left the north, as you're looking at the moment. But the centre section can be accessed from either the north or the south, as you can see by the track plan, which means that it forms the common part of a return loop. So it can't be wired up in any one particular way. And what one of the things on that board does is switches the polarity of those green and yellow wires to suit either the south entrance polarity or the north entrance polarity, depending upon the setting of a couple of points. That's all taken care of by JMRI. So when I set a route up, JMRI not only sets all the points, but it knows when to change the polarity of the centre section. But it does stress the importance that I have put on myself that before you drive anything in or out of the fiddle yard, you always set the route that you want to take. Even if you think it's already set it again. It can't do any harm. No points will change if you set it a second time. But basically it ensures that the polarity is set correctly. This picture looks very different now. For a start, all the point motors are in and all the wiring is on top of the baseboard. And on the left hand side of the picture, as you're looking, the edge pieces of the baseboard are missing. On the right hand side you can see that the uprights on the edge of the baseboard are there, but on the left they're missing. They were all fitted and all the top sections are in place, so all the covers are on as well. So you cannot actually see this picture in any way in the garage without actually half dismantling it. The first section to come off actually covers the most of these points, which is the most likely place where you're going to get derailments. Luckily I don't suffer with too many. One other thing to point out on there is at the top, sort of over just right of centre at the top, you can just see one of the lamps that is fitted. That's the first one that was fitted in there. It's a 12-volt lamp because I didn't want mains into the garage. I didn't want to put a mains cable round the garage to the lamps. So just at the entrance of the left-hand tunnel as you're looking, there is always a mains adapter sat there, which provides 12 volts into the garage to drive the 6 lamps that are in there. It's a 12 volt 5 amp power supply which easily copes with 6 T5 lamps. And just in front of that lamp that you can see, is the first attempt at cameras. What you've got there is a USB camera which conveniently had a clamp on the bottom of it, which I was experimenting with USB to see whether I could put 6 USB cameras in there. That really isn't possible unless you've got an incredibly powerful PC that can look at all the cameras at once and keep them all connected. But even one USB camera provides so much delay, it's just so far off being real time, that you can't drive trains to it. Well, you can't drive trains to try and position them exactly over uncouplers so that you can then reverse the loco and make a successful uncoupling. And you can't drive trains such that they don't crash into you can't drive locos so they don't crash into the train that they're supposed to couple to, rather than just buffer up to it and let the couplings do their job. That was my experience. I also tried network cameras and they were just as bad. Now maybe if you've got a very fast PC and a very fast network, you'd get away with network cameras. But the PC I was using at the time was a 100 meg network. I now use gigabit network, but it was 100 meg, and I had one network camera on it and it was still too slow. And I pointed this out many times, and I still see people using cameras that are not real time, network or USB. I don't know how they get on, because they never come back and say I was doing this and this failed. So I'm not really sure, but I couldn't live with it. So I use analog cameras. The quality of the pictures is poorer, but it's not quality you're looking for, it's real time. So that's why I use the cameras that I do, which I haven't actually shown you because you can't see them, they're all hidden in here. But if you've looked at my earlier Canal Sidings videos, you've certainly seen some cameras of the type that I use that sit on my sector plate. And I use exactly the same cameras in there, 6 of them, switched by those 6 relays on that board. And I'll get rid of this picture now, on that board that you were looking at the beginning. Okay, so my next job is to get that positioned more comfortably and not just hanging on bits of wire, and try and get the cabling tidied up a little bit. So I'm going to go away and try and do that, and hopefully I'll come back and you'll be able to see a better, much tidier layout just there. One other thing, there are a few wires that now go nowhere. Some of them were there already going nowhere, that used to drive some isolating sections when I was DC at the ends of all those tracks you were just looking at. Of course, with DCC the isolating sections are completely unnecessary, but there are also some wires that I had to cut because they went through and connected to the board that was above this lot, because it was all an afterthought, DCC, on this layout. So I am hoping that I can find where everything goes when I put it back together. On that, we'll just have to wing it and hope for the best. Anyway, I'm going to shut the camera down now, and I'll come back when I've improved the situation. Well, we've got it in place. The trestle standing there is standing where it will be supporting Canal Sidings in terms of how far it is from the wall, but it's actually not necessarily right in terms of whether it needs to move to the left or the right. I think it needs to move to the right, and then I won't be able to store the boxes that I've got that you can't actually see, they're down below it. but I have managed to tidy everything up and give myself a bit of space around there in order that all of the equipment fits in, and I'll be able to see relatively easily all the lights on the end board, which is actually obscured from your view now by the trestle, but in my case I can see the end board quite well because I'm standing to the left of the camera and I'm not as low down as the camera is either. So that's where I've got so far. I have actually got on order now all of the speed frame, and that should be arriving tomorrow, being Tuesday, so we'll see whether that actually appears or not. Once I've got that, a bit more moving around in here, then I can reintroduce Canal Sidings and see what the real damage is that it's going to do to me getting it all in place. So I'm going to say goodbye for now and thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.